Once you see him, you can't unsee him. Okay, Twitter poll.
Where is my daughter? People don't just disappear.
He gets in your head. Like a virus. It's him.
This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. What I'm looking at today is Slender Man, a movie directed by Sylvain, who for a long time was the toast of Hollywood till he wasn't. In any case, Slender Man isn't a bad movie. If you've seen a lot of reviews, you would think it's the worst thing since, I don't know, Insatiable? Psst, which is also not that bad. In any case, Slender Man revolves around a group of 4 friends who, for pretty weak reasons, decide to summon Slender Man. And it's, as I said, it's not a terrible movie. What it is a very confusingly written movie. And if your movie is badly written, unless your visuals are so spectacular, these aren't, there's nothing really to hold it up. So this movie kind of falls flat. And that's a pity, because it has potential. I mentioned earlier that it's just badly written, and it is. It's just a hodgepodge of things. And you don't quite know why Slender Man is, what his purpose is, why he's even there, why he looks as he looks. Nothing quite passes the logic test. And that's the movie's biggest flaw as far as I'm concerned. So, when he comes, it's supposedly via watching a video online, which is reminiscent of movies like The Ring, which was a videotape, but same idea essentially. So, it's not very original, and though that being said, I understand why it's like this. Keep in mind that Slender Man came from an internet meme, so the writer of the story seems to me took the approach that you had to watch the video online and it infects viewers, very much like The Ring. And it's just a tired way of doing it. If this movie had been better written, it actually would have done really well. I mean, the visuals are interesting. Ironically enough, though, it's weakest when you actually see Slender Man, who's clearly CGI. It's not terrible CGI, but it's CGI. The more you see him, the more it kind of takes you out of the movie. It's actually very interesting to see how these girls are reacting to this viral video and how it's affecting their minds. If the whole movie had revolved around that, I think it would have been more interesting. Instead, for the most part, it revolves around it a little, but spends way too much time with the actual Slender Man. And going back to what I said earlier, you don't know why he does things. For instance, when the four girls first do the ceremony that brings the Slender Man, I guess, to our plane, it involves a tree, or trees. And I'm okay with that, because in my mind, I said, okay, this tree was Slender Man's entrance to our reality. Remind me somewhat of The Guardian, in fact. But trees play a role throughout the movie. And part of me was like, after a point, that is. I mean, I'm willing to accept the trees as the initial entry point for the Slender Man. But after that, I'm like, why is he fixated on trees? What? I mean, at some point, it came to my mind that he's only associated with trees in this movie because he looks kind of gaunt, kind of like a tree. That's not a... And again, I'm not saying necessarily the writers planned it that way, but it looks that way. And that's not a good way to go. If you don't have any kind of motivator, if you don't have any kind of logic for why he's associated with trees, stop associating him with trees. Just stop doing it. It just doesn't make any sense. It makes things really silly. It's a relatively heavy CGI movie. That's not a bad thing in and of itself, but it just, there's a pointlessness to it. And to be fair, when I saw this movie, I was wearing a tank top and the theater was air conditioned, which I mentioned because it was cold. So I found myself kind of huddling to stay warm and actually falling asleep. Now, I don't think that was the movie's fault. I mean, if I had been dressed in something a little warmer, I probably would have been fine and I might still have fallen asleep, but I can't prove that because I wasn't. So I don't necessarily hold that against the movie, but it's not a good thing. Another interesting thing, though, is when I came to the theater, I was literally the only person in the theater. And when I come up one of those huge theaters, it was a relatively small theater in Washington, D.C. I was the only person there, which is cool, because I had all the space. But it was kind of odd, and it reminded me of how the movie-going experience is a very communal one, because I felt a little isolated. It was a little odd, but in any case, it didn't make me dislike the movie more. It just made me think how much better this movie could have been with one or two more rewrites, tighten up the Slender Man mythos a bit, and just make it a little more logical. And another thing I think is worth mentioning is that, as I said before, Slender Man came about from an internet meme. So therefore, there's no real origin to Slender Man, per se. Why didn't the movie build an origin for him? It doesn't have to tell every little detail. That's frankly like exposition crazy. That's not needed. But begin to build an origin for the character. Give us information about how he reacts, why he does what he does. That's pretty important, because in the movie, his actions seem very random and very weird. For example, it says that either Slender Man takes you to Cleveland, to Hoboken, no idea. But either Slender Man takes you, or he drives you insane by looking at you. Now, this is not very consistent. characters see Slender Man and don't go bonkers. So not only is the movie not well written, it's very inconsistent. If they had, as I said, spent more time with the writing, take a little time, build up this mythos, make us understand why he's doing what he's doing, without, of course, revealing every little detail. Don't need that. It probably would have been a much, much, much better movie. And by the way, I heard that this movie was cut a lot. In other words, it was built in the editing room. Most movies are built in the edit. But from what I've seen from other things online, this movie was really cut to bring the rating down from an R to a PG-13. They should have left it at R. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Peace.